Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Rudd. I'm a filmmaker who screened a film at Salute Your Shorts Festival 3 years ago, and I've kept in touch with the festival. My actor who came to California had a great experience there and loved the festival, and I'm super excited for this opportunity to support the festival. As a filmmaker, I know that one of the best things about festivals is to be in a room where an audience is there responding to your film. And so the worst thing about COVID-19 quarantine is that we filmmakers don't get that opportunity. So I'm trying my hardest to pretend that I'm everybody in the audience and trying to see these films through multiple points of view and ask the filmmakers all the questions that I have. And today I'm super excited that I have Tahmina Rafaella with me, who made the film A Woman, and hopefully you viewers have already watched the film, because we're going to talk about what goes on in the film in this little Q&A. So if you haven't watched it yet, go watch the film, come back here and watch the interview, because this is a directorial debut. Is that right for you?
That's right, directorial debut.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks
it's
so
an
much.
Accomplished. And you're the writer?
I produced it, I wrote it, I acted in it, and I don't think I'm ever going to do that again. Not with like a low budget the way I had it, but yeah, it's pretty much everything.
I mean, honestly, I watched the whole film before I knew that you were the lead actor. I knew that you were the writer and I knew that you were the director. And when I found that out, I was like, mind blown. Because I know how hard it is to manage all the different things that are happening. When did you feel that tension the most strongly when you were on set?
You know, I think my DP, he was, from the start, it was probably just me and DP that were doing the entire work, because it was a very small crew. And I think at one point I realized that when we're shooting the car scene where I'm driving, and I'm realizing, oh shoot, like I'm driving and I'm doing this, and I'm also trying to be in control of what's happening on the directorial side. And I think I felt a tension when I realized that I didn't have much time at viewing what was happening else. Like I didn't even have much to so it was almost like trusting my instincts and saying, I think that was good, we can move on. And that's when I realized that, but that doesn't always work. Sometimes you really have to check to make sure it's working. So luckily it worked out. But honestly, I was at some point I was like, this is probably going to be crap. Like that's how I felt. So yeah.
But it wasn't at all. I mean,
thank you.
So one of the things that I appreciated about your film so much was the subtlety and the sort of like sophistication of all these emotional layers that are kind of unfolding, and primarily in your own performance. So that's even more wonderful. But I thought all the performances were very even. And I didn't know anything about the story going in, so I had no idea where it was going to go. And there were all these moments where I sort of thought, oh, it's going to go this way, and it didn't. It went this other way that was a more, well, it was delightful because it wasn't what I was expecting. I like that, obviously. But for instance, I think that there's always, even the way you design, I'm talking now. The way that you designed the interaction where you are with the person, your character is the caregiver for the man, and you have these answers that you have given him over and over again. And what a wonderful kind of narrative device to structure the interaction that way, because your character is both showing us so much about her life and their interactions and their relationship, and yet she has so much grace and gives him so much dignity in the interaction. And really, one of the things that I kind of expect to unfold right away there is how beleaguered she is in her marriage, because her husband has this career and he's not really listening to her very much. And she has probably a lot to give that she's not getting to give because she's just doing this invisible, repeatable labor that has defined women's work for so long. But that's not at all where you went. You went in a very different direction. That yes, those things do define her life, but also this man is a good man who cares about her, and she cares about him, and she feels like she had choices.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that, because that was the intention I went with, is that I think sometimes everything is black and white, and I did really want to show that there's a gray area. I mean, you can be with someone who loves you, but at the same time is clouded by this ambition and these like a daily routine and everything. So it was important for me to show that she isn't, first of all, she's not a victim, and that was the biggest thing that I wanted to show. But secondly, also I wanted to show that you don't have to be a feminist, to be someone who supports women. You don't have to necessarily be out there and saying, oh, that's going extreme. Like, you can be a feminist and love women and still be, I think, the wisdom and the grace that I wanted to show through her, that is to me the power of a woman. And that is what I was trying to get with, is that how strong women are. I mean, the fact that they go through this and they still carry this wisdom and strength within them, that's what carries, that's what makes women women. And I think that was very important for me to show that. And at the same time, he gives her, like when he says thank you to her at the end, like that to me is showing that he does love her. There is love. They did get married on their own terms. This wasn't forced. So I think to show that it doesn't have to be extreme, it doesn't have to be black and white, was really what I was trying to get at. And I'm so thankful that you were able to also see that.
I definitely did.
Yeah.
I do think that one of the things that's, I think, true for all humans is that when we tend to see people's situations that are different from ours, we tend to overlay a bunch of things onto those situations that really have nothing to do with those people. They have everything to do with stereotypes that we've been fed or things like that. And so, I mean, this is one of the things that like I super appreciate about post-colonial feminism, is that it challenges these stereotypes that women who are in traditional and conventional places are oppressed. And
exactly, that's exactly right. Yeah. It's funny because it's absolutely right. Like, for example, I'm a big fan of Asghar Farhadi, Iranian filmmaker. And I think we have this, I mean, sure, there's a lot of political oppression, there's a lot of religious oppression, but at the same time, like, some of the strongest women I've ever met are probably Persian Iranian women. I mean, from this side of the world, they carry a lot of, and when I say strength, I don't think strength needs to be defined by like how much labor they do or how much they're earning. And I think that's what comes with them, is that I've seen some very badass, powerful women from that side of the world. So like, this idea that just because there's religious oppression or political oppression that the women is weak, that's absolutely not true. They do have what I've learned from coming from a culture that's close to that. My mother, for example, I mean, sure, does she come from a conservative background? Does she come from a Soviet background, which was quite, that's true. But at the same time, she did it all. And you don't have to go to extremes to show that you are strong. And I think that's exactly right, what you were saying about this like stereotype that we have.
I may ask you later if I can borrow this clip of the interview, because you just said so profoundly and so beautifully things that
absolutely
that I want to tell my students all the time. I always show them at least one Asghar Farhadi movie.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And it really changes them. It changes a lot of their own perceptions. But it would be so great to be able to share some of your.
Absolutely, yeah. I would actually, I would love to share this as well, because I think my American friends, especially, I mean, it's good that we have a lot of Persian Americans, but Persian Americans aren't the same as, people who grew up in Iran or people who grew up in those parts. And even for me, like a lot of the times people ask me these questions, they're like, was it, I'm like, yeah, it was. But at the same time, that didn't define me. It didn't define a lot of the women I grew up with. It was about accepting, and at the same time, understanding what it is, and of course fighting it, but at the same time, like, they're not victims. A lot of us, we're not victimized by the system. So I think it's important to remember that there's strong women all around the world, even without with the oppression going on in a lot of these countries.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned in some interviews already how little the world knows about Azerbaijan, and that's 100% true for me. Like, I grew up in the United States, and so of course my view of the world is shaped by the media and the people that I know, and it's very limited. And Azerbaijan is very interesting in terms of like this nexus of both European and Asian, but then also the Soviet background. Like, there's so many interesting influences.
Yeah, and it's Islamic. That's also
right.
Yeah,
that absolutely.
Yeah,
adds layers and layers of meaning. One thing I was wondering as I was watching the film, and really as I was thinking about the film afterwards, is because you've chosen to film, like, the film is made in Azerbaijani, so it is in some respects more for an Azerbaijani audience than for a Western audience.
Mhm.
Or am I wrong about that? Or tell me a little bit about.
Yeah, so I chose, there's two languages that are being used in the film, and there's Russian and then there's Azerbaijani. And the Russian is basically, our country is, once again, it's going back into the complexity of our culture and everything, because we were part of the Soviet Union. I mean, our parents grew up speaking Russian and their kids grew up speaking Russian. So the country is quite, sometimes there is a divide between Russian speakers and Azeri speakers, which is quite sad, because I think there's also stereotypes in each part. You know, it's kind of like we see that in a lot of colonized countries. You know, we saw that, you know, in French-speaking countries and English-speaking countries. So we see that in every country, and it's going to take generations of generations to completely wipe that out. But unfortunately, like when I made that film, my intention was to do it for, I do want to always write about Azerbaijani women, and I do want to show that side of the world, because I feel like we don't have much of it to see, and we do have more male filmmakers, which is a classic, but there's not a lot of stories being told of women. So when I was doing it, it was for both. You know, I wanted it for Azerbaijani women to see it, for them to connect, to understand. And you know what, like the people that have reached out to me after, especially Azerbaijani women, I mean, they were saying that this is like my mother. This is exactly like my mother. This is, and it was so wonderful to see that, because I realized, if I can connect with the women of my country who I was trying to show in this film, but also get people from around the world who are reaching out and saying that they can understand, that was really what made it, I think, meaningful to me, because that was my intention all along, is to see that, you know, to probably appreciate your mother, you know, appreciate the women in your life. That's really what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's a great answer. So I'm wondering, one of the sequences that I thought was lovely, because it was a real departure from the film, was the section where the main character is holding an instrument kind of close to her, and she plays it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then it seems like what we are hearing is music either from the past or music from her imagination, but maybe music that she's played, that maybe this instrument has defined something of her identity. Am I reading your film rightly? Or
no, it's yeah, absolutely. I think it also that like instrument, you know, she's obviously not a professional. We see that. So it's a kamancha, it's a traditional Azerbaijani instrument, and she's playing it. And I think, you know, we hear that she's not a professional. She's just trying to play. And I think it kind of, in a way, defines the dreams that maybe she has. The dreams that she left put aside for this family that she's supporting, that she's holding on, like she's the one that holds this family together. So to me, it's like, it's the what ifs, it's the dreams, it's her own ambitions, it's her own desires.
Right.
And then, yeah, you're right. The song, you were right. Like the song that continued, that was from her imagination when we see like the sequence go on. Yeah.
But it's a wonderful sequence. I always think that music that connects so closely to the image that we're seeing, like it draws us into sort of understanding that music as having a more emotional impact on the character in the moment. And because your film is relatively, like it has a more realistic feeling to it, you don't use a lot of swelling scores to direct your emotion. You sort of depend on the performances and on the camera work, but because it kind of stands out in that way. So actually, I'll tell you a little funny story. I rewatched that sequence later just to kind of like sort of sort through it in my head. And all of a sudden I heard a phone go off in the middle of the music. And I was like, is that phone going off for her again? Because it keeps happening through the whole
Yeah.
But I realized it was my phone.
You know, it could have been that phone.
It could have been her phone.
Yeah, exactly. Back to reality.
I felt exhausted by that phone. It just kept on like adding layers and layers.
Yeah.
But it resonated as being such a true depiction of what it is to be like stuck in that middle of parenting and also providing care for a parent and holding together sibling groups and a job and so many things.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's really nice to hear that.
So tell me a little bit about the process of developing your artistic collaborators, your actors. You said you had a DP that was on the set with you. Are these people you've worked with before? Tell me a little bit about the process.
So I was honestly, it was so strange how you know how when you trust the flow of life, things just happen. And I remember I came back home. I was going through something personal in my life that was quite hard for me. And I came home to Azerbaijan. I was staying with my parents. And my mom has always encouraged me to direct. She's always, because I've written before, I've acted before, but she's always encouraged me to direct. And she just said, why don't you direct something? And I said, no, Mom, it's like a big deal. I don't know. And then it just hit me. It's like, there's no reason why I shouldn't. It was, I could get a very small crew and a little bit of money saved up that I could use towards that. And it would be almost like an experiment. It's like trusting that I do want to try it anyway. And for me, it was something that I've always wanted to try, but I was afraid of doing. So I told myself, you know what, I'm going to take all this energy that has been built up in me of what I've been going through, and I'm going to put it towards that. So the whole process really took maybe three to 4 weeks. It was so quick. The turnaround was so quick. Yeah, the idea of the film I already had like from a while ago, but I wrote it probably in a day, and then I started, you know, rewriting. That's how it works. I found my DP. It was really strange because I know that's not how a film process works, and it's probably just like this like, beginner's luck almost. But everything just came to me. I mean, I met with this guy, said, hey, do you have a good DP of work? He said, yeah, we met up. I really liked him. And then the actors that I've worked with, the main character was my husband before. He's a wonderful actor. And everyone else, I had a friend who's a producer, but she just kind of suggested where to go, what people to hire. And then I put it all together. And it was really, I know that that's not our standard, and I know that's not how it's going to be in the future, but really, I think it came from a place of really trusting the process, of really just, I let it go. I think I didn't think of the result. I didn't think of it as being, it has to be this way. I went with the flow, and I told myself, I'm putting all of myself into it. And if it's good, that's great. But if it's not, that's also okay, because it's a first film. It's something I'm just trying for the first time. So that was kind of the process. I know it's strange, and I know it's like, I honestly, I think I got really lucky.
I'm going to just go out on a limb and tell the viewers of this video that they should actually look up your TED Talk. Because it relates to what you're talking about right now. And actually, like, you're talking about in that TED Talk, which I loved. I thought it was really,
oh, thank you.
It was meaningful on a spiritual level to me. So I thought that what you talk about there, you were talking kind of like what it is to be a human. You weren't necessarily talking so much about the artistic process, but what you just told me, that answer dovetails so beautifully with that. And it resonates as so true with me that as an artist, it's so easy to get in your head and just be spinning your head about like fantasies and the way it should be, instead of just doing this project that's in front of you. And if it's wonderful, it's wonderful. And if it's not wonderful, we'll learn from it. So it's wonderful to hear that this project was that for you. And yet it really did yield a beautiful film.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
It astonishes me that you were able to put that together in that time frame. It's wonderful.
I know. I honestly, like, someone told me that it's called, in Zen, they have that. It's like the Zen mind or something, the beginner Zen mind. And that's exactly, I think, what, I mean, I think you're lucky when you do it the first time, but then as you start making your second, third feature, you start getting in your head because you're already, you know, you overthink things. I think that's really one of the biggest problems of filmmakers and artists, is that we overthink things instead of sometimes just listening to that quiet voice inside of us that just says, you know, let it go. You do your best, you come, you show up, and then let it go.
Right.
Yeah. So.
I wonder, so I live in Ohio. I don't know if you know where Ohio is. But it's far from the centers of production for film usually. And sometimes I think that being far from those centers, you do find artists, when you're able to find artists that are talented, you find that they're really willing to give a passionate amount to your project. And I wonder, like, when you film your next project, or maybe you're already filming the next project, will you return to Azerbaijan? Do you know where you'll film next time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I came to the United States when I was 17, and I kind of been based in LA for a while. You know, I've studied acting, the typical kind of actor thing, you know, that we all do. And I've studied acting since I was 17, and then went to school, and I studied film studies and creative writing. But, you know, I realized that I really want to be making films in Azerbaijan as a director and as a writer. When it comes to acting, I'll go anywhere in the world to film because I love doing that. But when it comes to directing and writing, at this point in my life, I really do want to tell stories from my side of the world. I think it's like almost my duty to, you know, this is my way of giving back to my community that I grew up in. And I think the fact that not many people know about Azerbaijan, the fact that, you know, we don't have many female filmmakers, and we don't really have, I mean, I can only name one Azerbaijani film that has a lead, a contemporary Azerbaijani film that has a lead that's a female, and the story is about her. Everything else is just really male-centric stories. And I do think that, you know, if I have this ability, if I have this passion to tell these stories, why should I I think in the United States, we have already so many wonderful female filmmakers that are doing that about their own experiences. I want to tell stories of my experience. I want to tell the story of my grandparents, my stories, of my friends and their parents, like all these, I think, issues, societal issues that we have in our country. But at the same time, it's a wonderful place. We have wonderful people living there, and we're not a stereotype, which I think a lot of people can turn to.
I want you to do that too. I mean, I do think it's just a gift to be able to receive a story from a place that's far away,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to hold space in our own heart or our mind and our bodies for that difference, for the different experiences. That whole conflict that you just described for me of having parents who speak Russian and having discrimination that's connected. And I know that this happens in lots of kind of post-colonial locations,
Mm-hmm.
but then, so that knowledge helps me like want to go back and watch your film again and watch the sequence where the son is getting ready for his quiz and he's actually speaking a little bit of English. And there are just so many layers of complication. So I look forward to your films.
Thank you.
Have plans? Do you have scripts in the works right now?
I do. Actually, I'm working on a feature. So I'm going to be going back to Azerbaijan right now to work. I'm an actor in this film, and I'm a co-producer in some way. It's a wonderful filmmaker. His name is Elle S. He's wonderful. He's actually the one that has the contemporary film with a female lead. He's the one that made it. So I really wanted to work with him after that, because I was like, oh my goodness, I found a male filmmaker that's interested in telling female-centric stories. So he's really wonderful. And then I'm working on a feature right now that I would like to direct in the future. And it's about a woman that is going through divorce, and she's really fighting for the custody of her child, which we have a problem with in Azerbaijan. There's this big societal problem, is that when you have powerful and wealthy men, sometimes they will use that to get the child, even though the court is on the side of the mother. But this like complicated system, and it also dwells into domestic abuse, which is a huge problem in our country. I mean, it is around the world, but it's really unfortunate what's happening there. I mean, the amount of women that are being killed by their spouses. I mean, it just happened last week where another woman was drowned. She was pregnant. She was drowned by her. I mean, it's really tragic. So I want to incorporate all of that into the movie, and I want to show what's happening in our side of the world, because no one knows. We know what's happening in the United States. We know what's happening in even Lebanon. We know what's happening in Turkey, but no one knows what's happening in Azerbaijan.
Right. I'm so happy to hear that. One thing I've always been trying to do, well, I didn't figure this out until I had done a couple of interviews, but I want to connect people who are fans of yours after watching one movie to you in your career. Is there, like, do you have a social media account that you are, that people should follow? What is the best place to keep in touch with how your work is unfolding?
Absolutely. I think social media, my Instagram, my Facebook, absolutely. And I'm always like open to even, talking. I've had people reach out to me and just to discuss this. And I really like talking to people about these things. I really like, in a way, not educating, because that's the wrong word, but like spreading awareness about where I'm from, about what we have going on. Even like, it's important, I think, to be able to connect and to understand that, it's happening everywhere in the world. It's not it's not specific to a country. So social media is a great place to connect with me, and I'm always really open to talking to people.
Great, good. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with me today.
Thank you so much.
I am looking forward to seeing more of your films, and I hope that if any of our viewers have gotten this far, I mean, I know that they'll just go right away and watch the movie. I mean, you should, because it's such a great film. One more compliment. Do you have time for one more compliment? I do think, like, one of the things that is so hard to nail in any film is an ending that is both satisfying and also true. I mean, Hollywood, unfortunately, has so many like endings that are they satisfy your romantic imagination. They don't resonate as true at all. And your film negotiated that. I don't want to tell anybody about the ending, but for me, it really sort of rung true. And I had not just one feeling at the end, I had 7 feelings. And some of those, all of them were feelings of being satisfied by the story, but feeling of deep empathy for your character and solidarity with your character. So that's
That warms.
I know that's what directors are trying to do, and
that that warms my heart. That's really, honestly, that's all I wanted to do, was to draw empathy towards this character. And through drawing empathy to her, drawing empathy to all the women in our lives.
Right.
And how much they do for us.
I heard that you dedicated this to your mother.
I did. Yeah, I dedicated it to her. I mean, she was such an inspiration because, I mean, my dad is not like that. My dad is actually an incredibly loving, sweet man. So he's not her husband. But, you know, I think I have a deep, over that time in my period, I realized like how much I think there's no human in this world. I mean, parents are you know, they're that unconditional love that they give to their children. But I think women specifically, I mean, it's a special bond that I think is this love, this compassion that they're able to give out. And I think my mother has been that for me, realizing that she's done that for all of us, our entire family, for me specifically. So I dedicate it to her. She was really happy. She was really, really happy.
Has she been able to see the film?
She really loved it. I mean, just seeing that joy in her face was like, I was like, oh yeah, I did it. So.
Good. I'm so
thank
glad.
you so much. Thank you so much for the wonderful questions, for just your wonderful presence. It really means a lot to me that you were able to step in and just, you know, thank you.
It was a gift to me. Like I said, I got to watch your TED Talk. I didn't expect to do that.
Oh, that's so cool.
But it was delightful. And like I said, it was like a little bit of a spiritual drink of water for me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's amazing.
How to move forward in my day. So thank you so much, Tahmina. Have a great day.
Thank you. Talk to you. Bye.
Bye.